Thinking here for the last few weeks, or maybe we could say the last few decades, about this question, which I'll paraphrase, but this question that was um, posed by somebody, and it was on the clarification of if the martial arts have always been or were originally martial exclusively, meaning arts of war, arts of fighting, arts of combat. Uh, and, as happens, there's varying points of view and different arguments and evidences and so forth. And I found myself thinking, well, you know, as so often happens, we are going to reply in a way that is supportive of our predetermined biases, right? So I'm going to provide evidence that supports my point of view, which makes sense. It seems reasonable enough. But I enjoy these kind of conversations that I, view online, often not participating, because it expands, it opens the um, narrowness of my view. Oh, I hadn't thought of it that way, or that's an interesting argument. It doesn't sit with me, but it does expand my understanding of things. And I have a fairly expansive view of what the martial arts are and have been. One of the thoughts here was that, the martial arts is for fighting, for combat. That's what it's historically been. Some people will have that sense that it has historically been that. And today it is more than that. In other words, the hardware is not the only thing covered in the study of the martial arts, the software is as well. Some people have this thought that it has historically only been about fighting, and today um, what these proponents of the martial arts may say is that what is valid or most valid is a martial art practice that keeps to that historical tradition as they understand it. In other words, it was always martial only, it was always meant to be martial only, and that's the best way to do it today. Generally, of course, what will happen is, those people will not only say that's the best way it should be done today, but guess what? That's how I do it. And of course, the other people that will include, as I'm describing it, the software, they will they will say, guess what? That's how I do it. That's how my teacher does it. That's how my lineage is. You won't generally find people that say, um, here's my understanding, here's my reasoning, here's my evidence, here's my argument, but I do it this other way, which is reasonable and makes sense. Um, one of the arguments is that, historically the martial arts were developed as a way to, be more effective in battle, in war, in combat. And, that's why this weapon was used and this type of footwork was used, or this formation was used, and this, type of kick was used, or whatever, all the armors, the weapons, the maneuvers, the tactics, the conditioning, that sort of thing. And that all makes quite a bit of sense. And often that argument is, set up to argue against the idea that the martial arts are about spirituality or meditativeness or healing, perhaps, or an exploration of the ego and consciousness, or the chi circulating in the body, or what have you. And I would say my kind of argument here is that, when we talk about, the inner nature of our inner nature, and when we talk about our consciousness, when we talk about mortality, when we talk about pain, when we talk about psychic trauma, when we talk about high emotions or deep emotions, when we talk about um, the existential void or cliff, um, quite often, people are who are pursuing martial arts these days are hobbyists. They have their career, they have their lives, they have their ordinarinesses, and then they do martial arts, and they might really pursue them, and it might be a long time, um, a wide ranging and long term endeavor for them. So I'm not trying to minimize that. But these are not people that have faced the extraordinarily existential, emotional, psychic, intellectual challenges of, having to kill somebody, seeing many people grievously wounded beside you, or maimed or killed, or nearly maimed, or, walking through a landmine field, or having artillery bomb your location for years. Or I don't know if years, but, weeks, let's say. And oh, by the way, I'm live here, so I haven't played with this, but maybe comments will show up, and let's do a live chat. Maybe I can see your comments, and if you have something to ask or share, I might be able to read as I make my point here and interact a bit. But I haven't done the YouTube live stream too much. Anyway, I would say to you that there are some people who will be doing martial arts in their, silk outfit with the candles in the room and the Buddha statue and, peaceful garden outside the window, and talk about existential challenges and really deep thinking and fraught topics. They haven't been in a trench. They haven't had a cavalry rushing them and try to set a spear to that. And I'm not saying that they don't do the work and the work they do is not important. I'm just saying that I think by definition that people who are only doing martial arts, right? They're a Marine, for example, or they're, trying to take a hill, or, bearing down under the relentless onslaught of, the air power. These are people that are indeed necessarily, inescapably facing a front and center, front burner, front of consciousness experience of the consciousness of life and death, of spirituality, of what does it mean to live, what does it mean to die, what is the nature of pain, where is consciousness, what is love. Right? These things that we think of as the software, right? The softer arts. And so even if the art, the development, the passing on of the art, or the science, if you like, the martial sciences, of here's our stance, here's our footwork, here's how to do a push-up, here's how to run in formation, here's how to seek cover, here's how to cover up under the hail of arrows, here is how to mount the horse, here's how to flank an opponent, what have you. Even if that's literally all that's happening, that's all that's understood to be happening by the soldiers, that's all that's understood to be the intention of the educators, the trainers, the drill sergeants, or whatever. Even if they tell you that all that is being transmitted, all that is being developed and worked on is the ability to reload a magazine, or to release a depth charge, or read the sonar, or or launch the aircraft, or whatever. Even if that's literally all that is understood to be getting taught by the soldiers, and all if even if that is all that is understood to be being taught by the teachers, the people who are in combat, the people who are in war, are necessarily proximate and dealing with, perhaps poorly, perhaps well, who knows, the conditions of the human heart, the conditions of the human spirit, the conditions of the human mind, the software. And so I had been thinking, you know, that then a metaphor might be that your kid shows an interest in basketball and they want to play, and the uniform colors are cool, or somebody they know that's cool, plays basketball, and you're thinking as a parent, that's healthy. It'll get them out of the video games. It'll get them out there moving. So I'm going to sign them up for basketball and I guess a team or a practice squad or whatever. So the kid's excited because their neighbor friend is playing basketball, so they get to be on the same team, and they get to wear those colors because they think they're really cool, or they just love basketball. And you're thinking, well, that'll get them some exercise. It'll give me some time when they're not in the house. It'll give them a chance, to compete. What the parents know is that even if the coach says, "Hey, we need another person to complete our team," and that's why we've accepted your kid on the team, or the person at the Parks and Recreation Center says, "Well, you gave your $35, you're obviously on the team." Maybe that's how it goes. Even if it's just a very simple transactional kind of pro forma thing where I want to be on the team, I want to play basketball, so you join the team and you're playing basketball. The parent, the adult, ought to know that the only thing that is happening here is not basketball. Even if that's the only thing that the person at the Parks and Recreation Department thinks it is when they sign the kid up, even if that's the only thing that the kid thinks it is, even if it's the only thing that the coach or coaches think is that it's just basketball. We're playing basketball to win a game and to join a team. You know that what's happening is physical fitness, your emotional growth. Like, how does this kid learn to deal with, a losing season or getting benched or an injury? You're learning about, the value of stretching or warming up or cooling down. You're learning about the value of keeping your uniform in good working order and present with you when you show up to practice. You're learning about, um, letting up when, you're completely overwhelming another team. You're learning about good sportsmanship. You're learning how to find that competitive drive even when it's not looking very good for you on the scoreboard. You're learning about, how to be a good teammate and, laugh on the bus on the way to the away game. And sure, you're learning basketball, whatever that means. You're learning how to dribble or set a pick or whatever they do in basketball. You're learning how to jump and pass and all that dribble. But when the kid says to you, "I'd like to join basketball," you know, as an adult, as a person who's lived in this world, that so much more than basketball is going to happen to that kid. Even if everybody else thinks that the only thing that's happening is actual basketball skills. And the same thing with the martial arts. If your kid says they want to study martial arts and you figure, okay, they're going to learn how to defend themselves, or they're going to learn that, so much more is happening. You're learning how to be a member of a team. You're learning how to be solo as a member of a team in martial arts. You're learning all these things about self-confidence and self-respect and respect for others. And you're learning about anatomy. You're learning about healthcare. You're learning about, um, what it might be like to injure somebody, what it might be like to be injured, what it might be like to defend against an injury, what it might be like to defend somebody else, what it might be like to look at the world as a world that's fraught with peril and filled with opportunities to help others. What it looks like is just sort of learning how to punch and kick. What it looks like is you're learning how to dribble and get the ball in the bucket. So I would say that, if you're studying a martial science, if you're studying a martial art, you're necessarily studying the software. Now, is the software embraced by the people teaching? It may not be. It may not be considered. It may not be valued. It may not be highly valued. It may be kind of in there. Like, I know that's part of it, the teacher says, and maybe there's some sort of lip service to it. But my point is that I would say that it's necessarily a part of it. It's inescapably a part of it. The spirituality is a part of it. The actions of the human heart are a part of it. The actions of the human mind are a part of it. The experience of the psyche is a part of it. And yeah, there's punching and kicking or swinging a sword. Fine. Cool, even. Great. Awesome. And so, the people online we're talking about, and people, I admire and value and, appreciate and, consider experts and wise people, might have, a thought that, the martial arts historically, and maybe backed up by evidence, were only this, how to fight. And I would say they can't have been. They might have only been intended to be that, but they can't have been only that, even if that was the understanding and the intention. But the other part of it is that way back over here, if it had been just martial, just combat, just fighting, just how to fight, and the term maybe that's used to describe that, maybe not then, but now, is martial arts. That term can grow to include a conscious um, acceptance of, or valuing of, or incorporation of, or front burnering of the software, not just the hardware, not just how to punch and kick, but how to appreciate another, how to serve another, how to um, focus the mind, how to harness the breath, all these kind of things. What I'm calling the software. And so sometimes the people that are arguing will be saying, like, I'm over here in, let's say the 21st century, saying martial arts includes the software. Somebody else will say, well, back in the whenever, 1400s or whatever, the martial arts, maybe in general, or maybe the specific martial art they're talking about, that term martial arts didn't include that. And I would say, well, we're using the same term to describe two different things. That term has now grown to include a more conscious understanding of what the art has always necessarily included. And even if you don't accept that it always necessarily included it, the shared term now means more than it did before. Right? Like, driving a car has always meant driving a car. But after, I don't know, 20 years of driving a car, the ability to drive a car grew to include the understanding of how to operate at a stop sign. Before that, there weren't stop signs. I don't know if it was 20 years, who knows. And then the ability to drive a car began to include the ability to, um, drive in traffic. There's more cars in the road. Um, and so the same term, driving a car, uh, grew to include more skills, more things that were valued. Um, So I'm just gonna check my little note. I'll look at the comments if anybody's asked anything, but I don't really. Yeah, it says all messages visible, and I don't see any, so there may not be any spiritual psychic. Yeah. Um, my kind of definition, maybe we'd call it that, idea of the term martial artist is roughly analogous to the term Renaissance man, which I think is its own kind of woke problematically unwoke term because it's man, it's not anyone. But the idea of a Renaissance man, as I understand it, is, somebody who can write poetry and read a couple languages and speak to the serfs as well as speak to the clerics or the autocrats. It's a person who can arrange flowers but can ride a horse. It's a person who can, um, you know, maintain the etiquette required at some kind of gala, but who can defend themselves or defend others. The idea of the Renaissance man is somebody who can uh, grow their human condition in many directions and is purposefully doing that and is successful at doing that to some extent. The particular person might value one direction of growth more than the other. And so I kind of think martial arts is the same idea. It's about growing the human and growing the human towards the boundaries of the human condition. And I don't know if I want to say all of the directions, because maybe part of the human condition is cruelty or something, but growing appropriately and healthfully the human in the direction of the bounds of the human conditions, whatever they might be. And so for me, martial arts is growing in terms of um, kindness and growing in terms of service, growing in terms of the understanding of teaching, growing in terms of, um, flexibility of mind and body and so forth. But that'd be a video for another day. So thanks for hearing this. This is normally something I just film and put up on Patreon, but I thought I'd try it in a different avenue and perhaps that served us all. I don't know. But love. Thank you.